Alright, just like the Fast and the Furious, I'm going to review all the previous Marvel movies leading up to the release of the Avengers Age of Ultron, starting with the movie that started it all. Iron Man is the story of the origin story of how Tony Stark became Iron Man. This movie came out in 2008. I was a sophomore in high school, and when I first saw the trailer, everyone was raving about it, and anyone that saw the movie was really raving about it. Now, this was 2008. This was the year after Spider-Man 3 and the Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer came out. And around that time, comic book movies were And at that time, everyone was really getting fatigued from superhero movies, and then when Iron Man came out, it really caught everyone off guard. Granted, Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, before they had their own movies, I could give two shits about them. To the general audience, all we really knew was Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, X-Men, Batman, Superman. And so when Iron Man came along, not everyone really knew about him. And then the trailer came out, everyone was raving about it. But everyone still had their reservations about it because the movie as a whole still could have been some 90-minute piece of shit. And luckily, it wasn't. And so when I finally saw the movie, I really liked it. But I will still have my reservations about it because you know, like, I'm more into Spider-Man, X-Men, Batman, and Iron Man. Not my favorite superhero of all time, though. In his movie as a whole, though, I did like it. I felt like it was a bit overhyped and I'll even say slightly little overrated. But that was back in high school, and apparently I didn't know much about movies then. Now I'm a little older, and just yesterday I watched this movie, you know, just to prep for this review, and when I saw it, like, there's really a lot of brilliance in this movie, and I appreciate it more than I did back in high school. But one of the key elements of why I love this movie is that it's an origin story, and it's one of the good origin stories for a superhero. So the movie stars Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. He's a genius billionaire playboy philanthropist. He's living the rock star life among weapons dealers. He has no worries, he has no care in the world. In his world, it is all about numero uno. But the day during the weapons showcase, he gets ambushed by terrorists that keep him held hostage for a couple of months. This segment within the film is one of my favorite parts of the movie. When he is held captive in the cave, and all he has is his genius and intellect to figure out how he's going to get out of this. And so he uses it to build the Mark I Iron Man suit. And once he builds it, he uses it to escape the cave and to find his way home. And when he uses it, it's one of the coolest scenes ever. Usually, I like it in movies when a character is scrapped from everything and all he has is little. He practically have to use a box of scraps to figure his way out. He has to make something out of something, and that is really cool right there. Then the military finds him, they take him home, and Tony has a press conference revealing that the terrorists used his weapons against him. Then after that, Tony Stark, he spends his time throughout the movie trying to take the suit and develop it and make it better. Another one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when he finally makes the red and yellow Iron Man suit, he puts him on, and he goes to Afghanistan and he takes out the bad guys himself. He wants to protect the people that he put in harm's way. I like it in movies where we see scenes where the superhero really becomes the superhero for real, and he gets to showcase what he can do. It was just cool seeing Iron Man clean house with the suit. One of the main reasons this movie works is that it is an origin story that is also a redemption story. When Tony was in the cave, he befriends Jensen. He was held captive with him. He helps him ultimately create the first Iron Man suit. And then when he sacrifices himself so that he can get out, his last words to Tony was, "Don't waste your life." Moments like that are why I like redemption origin stories. He built the electromagnetic within Tony's chest so that the shrapnel doesn't get to his heart and let alone kill him. When he got home, he held a press conference and he even admitted that I have more to offer people than just weapons. So he shut down his weapons division because he wants to create something that'll help the American people. Again, moments like that are why I like redemption stories. And by the end of the movie, when he explains to Pepper Potts that he finally knows what he has to do, it's awesome. Like, you see a guy go from a complete asshole to a guy that completely gives a shit. And speaking of Pepper Potts, among Tony Stark being a good character, there are also the supporting characters in the movie. Like Pepper Potts, she is Tony's assistant, and she is also his love interest within the movie. Pepper Potts is played by Gwyneth Paltrow. I remember at the time when this movie came out, everybody was talking about, like, this was her comeback film, and quite frankly, it kind of was. After the first Iron Man movie came out, you pretty much saw her in pretty much anything. One of the cool things I loved about Pepper Potts is that her relationship with Tony Stark's, their relationship is one of those relationships within a superhero film that just works. And it works naturally and it's not forced. And it definitely carries on from this movie to the third, and even in the Avengers movie. And she is by Tony Stark through all of them. Hell, there's even a scene in the movie where she has to replace the arc reactor on his chest. And she literally has to go in, and she really has to go within his chest and replace it and takes out all the wires and stuff. Terrence Howard plays Rhodey. He is Tony Stark's best friend, and he is his confidant between Stark Industries and the military. He tries to keep Tony in check, but he was also his best friend, and he will stay by him as well. But yeah, Terrence Howard, he's really good in the movie. Too bad he doesn't make it to the second film. I'll get more into that when I get to those videos, but for this movie, Terrence Howard, he's really good in this movie, though. One of my favorite scenes with him is near the end, and he helps Tony Stark get the suit out, and then he sees the Mark II suit. He's thinking about becoming the War Machine, but then he turns back around and says, "Next time, baby." But the villain in the movie is Obadiah Stane, played by Jeff Bridges. He is Stark's second in the command at Stark Industries, but he is also trying to kill Tony Stark because he wants to be CEO of Stark Industries. Oops, sorry, spoiler alert. But I just like when a movie, it shows a guy who's completely good in the beginning, but halfway through the movie, you see his true colors and he turns out to be the bad guy. Now, he was even working with the 10 Rings, which is the terrorist group that kidnapped Tony in the beginning of the movie. He takes the first Iron Man suit, he takes it, makes it bigger, and calls it the Ironmonger, and makes it better than the Mark I suit, and let alone his current Iron Man suit. And it makes for a sweet, awesome fight at the end of the movie between him and Iron Man. I felt like that fight was a good climax to a really great story. In the end, Iron Man beats him. He holds a press conference explaining what happened, but then Tony Stark, he does what any other superhero wouldn't do, which is reveal their identity, and Tony Stark reveals that he is Iron Man, and then boom, in credits. Before I give my final thoughts on this movie, I just want to address some of the Easter eggs in this movie, like the 10 Rings. Like I said earlier, I didn't even know about that. And that, as you know, carries on into the third movie. I didn't even realize this, but this was also the first film that featured Agent Coulson. And it was really funny, in the beginning of the movie, he said that he was part of the Strategic Home Intelligence something division. And then at the end of the movie, when Pepper tells him, "I'll be keeping in touch with the Strategic Home something," and then Agent Coulson, he stops it, then he just says, "Just call us S.H.I.E.L.D." Once I saw that, I was like, oh, I see what you did there. I see. You can even see Captain America's shield in the background when Tony first gets home and he tries to take the Mark III suit off. But of course, I gotta talk to you about the end credit scene. At the very end, Tony Stark come home and he sees Nick Fury, played by Samuel L. Jackson. And he reveals himself and he says, "I'm Nick Fury, and I'm here to talk to you about the Avengers initiative." And then boom, that's it. When I first saw that, I was like, is this real? I hope it pays off. And I would have to wait 4 years after that to see if it pays off, and it sure does pay off. But in any case, that end credit scene alone is the bane of existence of why audiences now sit in the theater and wait during the end credits to see if there's an end credit scene. In the end, Iron Man is one of the first films leading up to the Avengers. It still holds up as one of the best of the standalone movies. Not my personal favorite of the standalone movies, but now that I'm a little older, I can appreciate it more than I ever did. And it is one of my favorite comic book movies that is an origin story that at the same time is also a redemption story. It didn't feel like an Avengers prequel, it was a solid movie in itself. The fact that it's leading up to bigger and better things, that's just a bonus. The story was great, the acting was great, it had great humor and fun that mixed in well with everything else. Iron Man is an A++. Man, these classic reviews are pretty fun. That's it for the day. You like what you see, subscribe to this channel, subscribe to my other channel. The links are in the description below. And be sure to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr. And be sure to check out my website. Peace.